responsibility in working with children to make sure that we're doing all we can to best serve their needs. So today we're asking, how can we better serve students who struggle with cognitive disorders? And as always, we have brought in a very smart guest expert to shed some light on this for us and provide a lot of education and resources for you. Before we introduce her, I want to give a few reminders, and I think many of you may know who she is already. Throughout this episode, you're going to see Melissa and I looking around. It's not that we're not paying attention or we're crazy. It's we are trying to address your comments and your questions and make sure that we get those answered for you throughout the conversation. So please contribute, jump in. We want to hear your thoughts, your questions. That's why we're here. So let's get to it. Melissa.
I am so excited. This is actually my first time meeting Tricia, so I'm extremely excited to have her on the show today and tell you a little bit about her before we get started. So Tricia is the creator of Hip Hop in a Box and the global director of RhythmWorks Integrative Dance, where she's blazing a path of opportunity for students who have learning differences and special needs by educating dance teachers on all aspects of becoming an inclusive studio. Tricia's unwavering dedication to education and her unique teaching methods have landed her on the Dr. Phil Show and the TV show Dance Revolution as the lead judge. So we have greatness in our midst here. If you've gone up against Dr. Phil and made it, then we know that you are going to make it through this show with flying colors. She's also a teaching artist consultant for Disney Performing Arts, where she's had the honor of working with dancers from around the world. Thank you so much, Tricia, for being with us. We are so honored to have you here today.
Legendary, iconic, Tricia Gomez.
So I do definitely just want to jump into it because I know that everyone is here on Facebook and here in Zoom to learn more. So what does research show us on the percentage of students who struggle with learning differences and special needs? And tell us why it's so important to be hyper-focused on creating an inclusive learning environment rather than isolating students.
Yeah, so I think I looked at a statistic recently. It is in the national population, you're looking at about 14% of the population that has a diagnosed of something or another that we can lump into that special needs population. So you would imagine that that would transfer into our class, or at least it should, right? So we should see around 14% of our student population with some kind of learning difference or special need or disability of some sort. I will say, though, that the same statistic shows that over the last decade, actually not decade, 20 years, over the last 20 years, it's increased by about 11% in our population. So we do have way more people right now who are being diagnosed with different
You know
things.
why that is? Is it because we're just more aware of it and we have a name for it now? Or what are your thoughts
You
on
know,
that?
I think it might be multiple things. So I'm no doctor, so I can't say for
Right.
sure. But I look back and I think when I was in school, and I think about the kids who were in school with me, and I could, knowing what I know now, I would be inclined to say, well, this, I think this student probably had autism or
Right.
something like that, and it just wasn't as diagnosed back then. It's definitely more prevalent now because of the new DSM, which is like the medical diagnosis dictionary that goes through all of what kind of presentations do you have to have in order to be diagnosed with something. That gets updated periodically. So I think especially with like autism, it's a wider variety of people are now getting diagnosed. There's a lot of people in their adulthood. A good friend of mine just got diagnosed with autism, and she's finally like, yes, this explains so much
Right.
from my life. So, but I also think this is another cool statistic is 1 in 6 kids ages 7 to 11 have a sensory processing disorder, and sensory processing disorders can like present with so many different challenges, especially behavioral challenges. So with or without a diagnosis, if you're thinking 14% have a diagnosis, there's a whole slew of students who haven't been diagnosed with anything that just maybe need a little bit of extra assistance in class. You had asked about, inclusive classes versus separate classes. I think and this is my opinion personally because I've seen kids flourish in different situations. Some kids are ready to be in a typical class. Even though skill wise they may not be at the same level, they can participate in class. It's very healthy for them to be in that class. There are other students who need to be in a different class that focuses on certain aspects of dance class more so than what's assumed. So, for example, you may teach a jeté in your class, but some students may still be learning how to jump. So that student may need to be in a different class. But I always look at the differentiators. So you put a kid in a general, typical class for their age group, how are they behaving? If they're behaving appropriately and doing their best and following instructions, then that child should be in that class. If you see bad behavior, then that's telling you something's going on. Something that kid, it's either too challenging or that kid needs a different class for now to help them get there. So I think as a studio owner, I would want to have both options. I would want to have a specialized class that focuses maybe on motor planning and social interactions and cognitive processing, and then also have trained teachers in your general population classes that know how to help students who need a little bit of extra help. So I think there's places for both in the studio.
Yeah. And for those out there that are watching this going, but I don't know how to even begin doing that, you're in luck because we're going to give you lots of ways you can do that. And Tricia has a program designed to help exactly with this specific thing. So we are going to talk to her about that towards the end of the show, and how you guys can get that going in your studio fairly easily. So
Bree, real quick,
yeah.
out in Facebook land, we have some great comments. Tanya is in our Facebook group, and she said that she's more aware, that she thinks we're more aware of it now. That's how this diagnosis numbers are going up, because she had ADD and never even knew it. And
Yeah.
her daughter, who's 11, actually has ADD, and learning choreography is such a struggle for her.
Yeah.
But definitely says that one of the things that helps is videos. So I can definitely see that being able to review and learn through video is something that helps her daughter.
That's great. Thank you, Tanya, for that. So Tricia, I know it's very basic, but shed some light on cognitive disorders, because what does that mean? We hear these things all the time, but sometimes we just hear them and it goes in one ear and out the other. But tell us what that means. What
So
is
it's
a
basically
cognitive?
going to,
Yeah.
yeah. So like cognitive, think of cognitive as your processing system, right? So we receive information, we relay information. It's the way we process the information that we're getting, whether it is spoken word,
Yeah.
visual input, sensory input. Our brain goes through the process. Some people process really fast, some people process a little bit slower. So we are all going to fall on a spectrum of our ability to process. It can affect things like our ability to learn. It can affect our memory, maybe our perception of a situation. A lot of times we see in class delayed response times. So we may ask a student a question and they may not respond right away. The more profound it is, it could take minutes before that student responds to us. It could help, affect their ability to problem solve. There's so many different ways it presents, but go back to that,
Right.
that processing system, and
Okay.
there's usually some kind of delay with the processing system.
Thank you for that. So we talk about this a lot on the show, but as educators, it's really important to be aware of physical and behavioral cues in our students, as you just mentioned. What are some physical and emotional responses besides delay? You just mentioned delayed responses to things. What are some other physical and emotional cues that we should be aware of as educators if a dancer is struggling with a cognitive disorder?
Yeah. So as you mentioned earlier, remembering choreography,
Yeah.
and remembering choreography, it could be for many different reasons, but what we often see is because there's a delayed proprioceptive response. So think of like when you move your arms and your joints, your muscles in your joints,
Yeah.
it sends information up to your brain to let your body know where it is in space. So are my arms straight? Are they bent? Are they up? Are they down?
Yeah.
What's going on? And when there's a delay in proprioceptive processing, the information doesn't get to the brain, so they're not able, that muscle memory has a hard time getting stuck,
Yeah.
getting stuck in your head and remembering it
Yeah.
because it's not getting up to the parts of the head that you need in
Right.
order to remember it. So definitely remembering choreography is part of that. I would say, sequencing steps together. So there's remembering the choreography, right? But then there's also executing the choreography when you're motor planning. So we can see some delays and some dysfunctions in the motor planning of the choreography as well. Delayed reactions to instructions, like I said. So I don't know why they don't listen to me. I tell them what to do, but they're not doing it right. So I could say, hey everybody, I need you all on this wall, and the whole class goes over there, but Johnny is
Right.
still over in the corner. I see the behavior, so I'm thinking, why is Johnny not paying attention to me, right? This kid doesn't pay attention. But Johnny still could be processing what you said, right?
Right.
And so then Johnny, when he's ready, will go. Um, it could be delayed communication or difficulty communicating. That we see a lot. A lot of students will use uh, talking boards where they can actually have the board talk for them.
Okay.
And yeah, non-compliance, right? So, that kind of goes back to the following instructions, but maybe this is on like a different level where they're just not participating in class
Right.
at all. And then one of the ones we see a lot is just behavior from being over challenged. I wish I had this on video. It's we were doing head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And this was in a class of about 10-year-olds. So it's head, shoulders, knees, and toes seems to be a little young for these 10-year-olds, but cognitively, they were on a younger wavelength. So we were doing head, shoulders, knees, and toes, and we did it slow motion. And this one guy was like, yes, I got it. Like he was rocking it, right? And then we did it regular speed, head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. And he was doing it, but you can start to see a little bit of frustration coming onto his face because he was starting to fall behind a little bit. And then we were like, let's do it super fast. Head, shoulders, knees and toes. And he was just like, ah! And he just took off like and started running around the room. He was like, see ya, I'm out. I'm not, this is way too much for me.
Yeah.
So, those over challenge situations can definitely cause behavior or emotional dysregulation, right? So if a kid is feeling over challenged and they're not able to self-regulate, then we will definitely see some kind of emotional outburst or something like that.
And as an educator,
So
that can be really frustrating. And if you don't understand where it's coming from, right? And you're dealing with all these kids in a class and you have these issues going on. And so that's why conversations like the one we're having today are so important, because as educators, that, our instinct may be to yell or to remove the kid from the situation, or, and that is not probably the best way to help that child. And there's better ways to do it that we know now. So that's why Trisha's here. So um thank you for I think always starting with the basic, what does this mean,
Right.
is so important for us to get to a fundamental understanding.
Right.
yeah, that's when I do my trainings. I have a three parts to my trainings. What is it? So let's define it. What tell me what it is and what happens in the brain, right? What does it look like? So if somebody has this thing, how am I supposed to know that? Just by looking
Right.
at them. And then what can I do about it? Right. So
Absolutely.
those are the three things I always like to include in our trainings.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you touched on the behavioral ways that this might manifest. And this kind of definitely leads into, we're going to talk a little bit about parents in this next question, and how to work with them. But I think that we see that a lot sometimes in parents who may have children with cognitive disorders and they want to push them or not give them, as I've heard. I used to work in a K through 12 environment. I don't want to give them an excuse to not be with everybody else. I don't want them to, feel like they're different. But you also don't want those emotional behaviors to hold them back either. So with that being said, like I said, I used to work in a K through 12, be a dance director in a K through 12 environment. And there was always two scenarios. I'm sure it happens in other extracurriculars as well, and as a studio setting as well, but the child is either undiagnosed, but they have physical and emotional cues that indicate there's a challenge, or the parents make you aware that there is a challenge upon enrollment. So you're kind of working with two different things. If students are undiagnosed and they're exhibiting these physical and emotional cues, and you suspect there's a possibility of cognitive disorder, how do you approach that with the parent?
This is hard. I've been in this. I'm interested with your answer because as is bad, I've been in this position and it's really hard.
Right. It's very hard.
It is. So I think the first thing we need to understand is that we are teachers. We are teachers of dance. Mm-hmm. And part of our process is to help these kids along their learning path, right? So we're going to see things in our classes that may not have been present in their school classes or at home. But I think we have a responsibility to bring up things that we're seeing. What I like to do, and this is because I have a toolbox of knowledge and tips and strategies that I can pull from. When I see something going on, I try to figure out something that works, right? So if I'm seeing a certain behavior, I might try maybe like adding visual schedules or visual supports to help the kid. If I'm saying instead of right and left, I might put a yellow circle and a red heart marker on the floor and say red, yellow, instead of right and left. I might maybe have to like physically motor them through something just to get them understanding what the movement is that I want them to do. I may need to, shorten my instructions. So my husband calls it word economy. So, don't use all the extra words. It's, you don't have to say, okay, everybody.
We all need a little word economy. We really
do. Right? Stand up and maybe you do a little bit of, sign language while you're doing it, or exhibit some kind of like demonstration of what you want them to do.
Right.
Try to figure out, is it maybe sensory related? We had one kid once that he was so rambunctious in class. He was constantly running around. I mean, this kid was probably one of the best dancers I've ever had in my class, but he was in constant motion all the time. And then one day I was like, Hunter, come here. And I put him in front of me and I just squeezed down on his shoulders, kind of like in a V position. And all of a sudden his body went, he just calmed down. And then he took my hands and he put them on his head and he wanted me to squeeze his head and then squeeze his arms. And in that sense, in that situation, I had found something that worked for that kid. And then this is what we want to do. We want to try a bunch of things. And when we find something that works, we can go to the parent and say, have you guys noticed, what we're noticing in class that, Hunter's really active. He's moving a lot in class. But what we found was if we apply deep pressure on his shoulders and his arms or his torso, he seems to really calm down and be more focused. Have you guys ever tried having him wear a compression vest? Mm-hmm. And, sometimes they'll go, oh yeah, my therapist said something about that. And you're like, oh, is he in therapy? Oh my gosh. Can I talk to the therapist, or what do you guys, I like to get involved. I think of myself as part of the team, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to the parent to say, you know what, I don't know what's going on with Johnny, but I can't control him. That's going to make the parent go like, gosh, again, right? But if I go to the parent with maybe a solution, or maybe, we've tried this, we've tried that, we've tried this. And if you've tried a bunch of things and nothing's working yet, I think it's still okay to go to the parent and say, we've tried a few things. I was just wondering if you had any suggestions of what we might be able to do in class, or does anything, do you see this at home? If so, what kind of strategies do you guys use at home? I've done that before, where we had kids who wouldn't want to participate in class. And anytime we'd introduce a new dance step, the kids were like, I need some water. And so they go off and get water and participate, right? And then I had, this one time I tried all the tricks I know, and this kid was not coming back into class. So I went outside and I'm like, look, having a hard time getting her back into class. what can we do to get her back? Do you have any strategies? And she's like, try a timer. Put a timer on for a minute and tell her she has to go back to dance class after the timer goes off. And I was like, okay. So I went up to her. I put my timer on my watch, on my phone, and I put the phone by her. I said, Mom said you have to come back to dance when the timer goes off. And then I just left her. So I didn't want her in a situation where like the break time was more fun than the dance class. So I just left her in the corner with her drink and went back to dance class, and the timer went off. She turned it off and came back into dance class. I was like, oh, this is excellent. Right. So long story short, do the best you can, but when you do talk to the parents, talk to them with understanding ears.
I love that.
Yeah, to say we're seeing this in class. Do you have any tips that we might be able to implement? Because you want the parents to know you're on their side, on the side of their kid, and that it's your number one goal to make sure that this kid is getting all the support they need in class, and that doesn't scare you away.
Right.
Yeah, I love that you said to approach them like you are part of the team, because that really is, it takes a village and you are one cog in the wheel. But I think as a parent, when you hear that, you're definitely more open and willing to communicate, rather than when somebody is coming at you like with a problem. You know, you're coming at me with a problem, and it's super. I already have enough of those. Like, give me solutions.
Yeah, and and I am not a parent. So I don't know why a parent would not say these things if it was something that they knew. My understanding from people that I've spoken with who do have kids in this situation is that they've tried so many things, and they've had teachers who don't know what they're doing. So the teacher says to them, I don't think this is the right place for your kid. I don't think we can provide your child what they need, right? And that gets really discouraging. So, maybe Johnny likes to really dance a lot at home and he loves music. And so someone's been saying, you should put Johnny in dance class, right? So mom comes and puts Johnny in dance class, crosses her fingers and hope it all works out. And when they land in a dance class who has a teacher who is educated, who is willing to do what it takes to support this kid, those parents are finally like, thank you. Because they finally have found their support team.
Well, now Melissa had asked about are undiagnosed, and I have worked with parents in my career who there's very clearly something going on there. But no matter the conversation, there's a hesitancy sometimes to put a name to it, or to recognize that there's something going on there. Other than they've just had a really long day, they're tired, where maybe I can see something is going on, and you try to bring that up, and there's just not. It's a wall. So what is your advice to deal with those types of situations?
I just think, like, I'm going to go back to being part of the team, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you're going to hit a wall, right? And you're not going to get any information from the parent at all. And I think this is where the education comes in, is that when you have a set of tools and knowledge and tips and strategies that you can try out, it doesn't matter if they have a diagnosis or what their diagnosis is, right? So we see behavior, we see having difficulty remembering choreography, we see delayed responses. We are teachers, and some of us are teaching artists. And to me, a teaching artist is when they put the process of teaching before the content of what they're teaching. So when they see a kid who's struggling, they don't look at that kid and go, oh, this kid can't learn choreography. Right. They look at it as, okay, obviously I'm not doing something that this child needs. Like, it starts with me. What can I do differently to help this kid? So it doesn't matter if they have a diagnosis or what the diagnosis is, or what how profound their diagnosis is. We teach kids to dance, right? And there's all the other little elements that come in with teaching kids to dance, but a good teaching artist will take the time to figure it out and get creative. And that to me is like the juicy part of teaching, right? Like I love dance, but I love seeing a kid get something
Right.
or
Right.
increase their ability in some kind of way or whatever it is. Like that to me is like, yes,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
And I think that's an important point, Tricia, to bring up, like that as teachers, we have to figure out how to best reach each student in our class. And I think that we've said this many times, dance educators, there's no off season, you're constantly moving, and we tend to get into these ruts where we do the same thing the same way all the time because it's easier and we're in this pattern and we don't have time to think of a new lesson plan or think of a new way to do something. And we have to create that space
right
in our brain and in our days and in our lesson plans to go, okay, I have a student that needs something different. I have
right.
that brain space and that emotional space to actually do what needs to be done for that student.
But don't you think like life has become that? Like we've gone so fast. You gotta like, this happens, you gotta do it. This, somebody does this, I need to do that. And it's like the world of like YouTube learning, right? Nobody wants to take the time to get flexible enough to do the splits. They just want to do a split.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Instant gratification for sure.
Yeah, and so to me, the dance class has become so content focused
Right.
that we forget to teach.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would love to see those that we don't need to be in such a rush to do all these things. We need to teach because what 0.1% of our students will go on to be professional dancers, but 99.9 of them are going to grow up to be awesome adults.
Yeah.
And we have a big say so in that. So
I love that. So, we all know being honest, I'm always here with the honest, like, let's just call it like it is. There are teachers that just aren't capable of thinking this way. It's the art, it's the steps, it's the style, it's all of that before before everything else sometimes. And if you're a studio owner, and there's merits to that, for competitive dancers and all that, like that type of teacher, there's I guess a place for that. But if you're a studio owner and you've got a faculty and you have that faculty member or members that just they're not equipped for this, is that something that all your teachers need to be equipped to do, period, end of story? Or can you get away with putting, you just don't work with these kids and that's okay? Or is it something that broad that, really in every class that you teach with children under 18, you need to have some sort of knowledge and awareness that this is going on?
yeah, so I think it's often, I hesitate to say that some people aren't capable of it. I prefer to
Maybe
think,
capable is not the word, but willing, maybe.
yeah,
Willing.
but willing, because I think it's often a case of you don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
once you do know, then I think you're more inclined to be like, whoa, wow, I never even thought about that. Okay. And then it makes you a deeper level teacher. Now, like you said, some people just don't want to, right? So, and that's their thing. And maybe working with a company or a pre-pro group of kids or a certain level is where that teacher needs to be. But if you're working with a general population, average everyday dance class, you're going to have students who need extra help in class, regardless if they have a
But
diagnosis.
your research, your percentages, it's high. I mean, the chances are, even at a competitive level, you're going to have those kids that are having these challenges. And so I would think it would be really important to be somewhat equipped at every level to be able to address that, no matter if you're competitive or rec or,
Oh yeah, I was watching the other day from my window in the sky. I was looking down at the beach, and there was a soccer team, like a kids soccer team, practicing soccer on the beach. And there was this one kid who just was struggling with coordination with everything she did. And the coach wasn't helping her. She was getting frustrated, and I not even hearing them. I can see what was going on. I so badly wanted to go down there and go, I'll work with you. I'll help you, right? And then you break down the things that she needs broken down to understand it a little bit better. So it's not, it's yeah, like you were saying, it's not just, you're not going to just have kids with disabilities and then everybody else. It's a spectrum, right? we're all going to land somewhere on our
Yeah.
ability
Yeah.
spectrum, and it's
And
all
and yeah, and it's hard. There is not really a certification, and our friends, you are helping with that, and we're going to talk about that. And our friends at YPAD are helping with that, but there really is no set, guidelines or standards for becoming a dance educator. So it's really important that we all, until that can happen on a grander scale, it's really important that we have the awareness and take that responsibility really, really seriously. So, you know, going one step further in this segment and then we can move on, but sometimes behaviors can be disruptive to the class in general. You've tried everything, these behaviors are going on. The reality is you're one person standing in front of a room of 10 to 20 kids on average, and one kid's got some challenges and issues, and the other kids are there and they're frustrated and they're trying to learn. Um how can we make sure that we're serving those students that are having the challenges, but still having a fulfilling class experience for those that are not?
so. I would say the first thing is to understand that it doesn't happen overnight, right?
Yeah.
There will be some classes where it's going to be challenging in both ways, but um, you want to look for the why. You want to look for why is this kid struggling with this thing? Is it behavior? Is it motor planning?
Yeah.
I find it super helpful to videotape classes. So if you do have a student who seems to be struggling, videotape the classes so you can go back and watch and really understand what's going on, because sometimes you see the behavior. What you want to do is you want to identify the behavior or the thing that is happening, and then look at what happened right before that. So was there an instruction given that maybe the kid didn't understand the way you said it, right? So for example, and I use this example a lot because it was a big eye opener for me. Sometimes we're a little abstract in our instructions. So we may say, okay, everybody find your spot. Um, and this one kid may look around, find his spot, and he's like, yeah, it's over there, right? In his head, he's like, I found it, it's over there. But what I really meant was
Oh,
put your feet on the green spot, right? So in his mind, he's like, yeah, I did. I followed instructions.
Right.
Exactly. But he didn't do what I implied. So you have to give more explicit instructions so that the kids understand exactly what it is. But had we not been able to look back at that,
right.
maybe we would have never figured that out. So, or maybe something, I've heard stories of, there are just kids who don't get along, and sometimes you put them next to each other and they're antagonistic to each other.
Yeah.
And so you might not see that as a teacher, and looking back at the video, you might say, okay, you know what? These kids are egging each other on. I need to put some people between them. Um, you know, I would definitely look at adding the visual supports. So whether it's a visual schedule where we say, here's what we're going to do. It's kind of like a playlist of class, and this is what we're going to be doing, so that the kids know what's going on. That helps with anxiety. Adding visual tools, like I said, with the colorful spots can help with cognition and behavior. Just maybe, I don't know, like using music that the kid likes could help the kid get a little bit more participatory in the class.
And if you have the other students that you're starting to see the eye rolls and you're starting to see the,
Do it for all of them, though. Like if you're going to
yeah,
use visual supports for everybody. That's going to
yep,
help everybody.
yep. I love that. Thank you. So, we just mentioned there's no formal certification or requirement to be a dance educator. It's a challenge for the industry. I think we're all trying to find ways to overcome that. In the meantime, though, what types of questions should parents be asking to make sure their coaches, their teachers, these children's mentors are equipped to teach children who struggle with cognitive disorders like your ADD, like your ADHD, autism, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I would ask, have they ever worked with a student like their child? I would ask if they have any training. Ask them if they're willing to try new strategies to help their kid along in class. But and I think that last one is the most important. Like, just
Are they
be
willing?
willing
Are they willing?
willing to do it and understanding, okay, it's going to be a challenge. It might take us, 2 weeks to figure it out. It might take us a year to figure it out, but we're in it. Like we'll figure it out. Like we'll work on this together. But you want to be able to put that parent's mind at ease to know, if you do have training, by all means, like lead with that. We've had additional training. We're aware of certain things. We have tips and tools and strategies we use in class. That will help a parent feel a little bit more at ease.
And conversely, if you're a studio owner or a manager or whoever, whatever, some person in position to answer that question, if you're asked that question, really, really think and commit to that answer before you speak. Don't just say yes to get the sale and then not that anybody would, but sometimes when we're in the moment, it's yeah, sure, but you
Yeah,
don't realize the weight of that commitment that you're making. Make sure that you're really committed to saying to what that means. If you say yes, we're open, and yes, we're willing, because it's important for that family and that child.
yeah.
Um, what can we do as dance educators to advertise to parents of um, kids that struggle with these challenges, that hey, we're a friendly place for you, we're a part of your team, we are. What are some things that we can do to blast that in a big neon sign so parents know, hey, this is a place I want my kid to
Yeah.
be.
I would say use lingo that those families are used to hearing, right? So things like sensory friendly, we like friendly environments. Uh, Classes open for all levels and all abilities, right? So an all abilities class will be something that would trigger, oh, maybe this might be what they're looking
You
for.
said all abilities, calling the class all abilities
Yeah,
class.
like
Okay.
all abilities. Um, I would reach out to local therapy companies in the area to let them know that that you do have special classes, or that you're open to all abilities. We like to let the therapists know that if they are going to refer students to us and the parents are okay with it, that we would want to talk with the therapist so that we can incorporate um, things that they're doing in therapy into class. So the strategies that they're using in therapy, we can incorporate that into class. Also, we can incorporate skill development for their goals into class as well. And I think so. There are, what I see most often are the kids that end up in our classes are probably closer to typical range, but there's a whole community of people out there who would be, moderately to profoundly challenged in some kind of way, who just don't think dance is even a possibility.
Right.
Right. So going out to where those people hang out a lot, which would be therapy clinics and doctors' offices and parent support groups and those types of things, and providing a free sample class, or inviting them to come to the studio for a trial class or something like that, um, just gets the parents aware that, oh my gosh, this is out there. How cool is that? Like we work with students, well, not students, they're adults, through a regional center, and these adults are severely impacted, like barely any movement at all. And the thought of them dancing
Yeah.
initially was like, okay, I don't know what you're going to do, but good luck,
Yeah.
right? And you start off with one time a week, and the girl that teaches these classes, all of her people have now requested 5 days a week
Wow.
with her, because they see such an engagement and such an improvement. And the parents are like, yeah, my son goes to dance class, right? And it's just something that they never would have thought of unless you go out and say that. So it's
Yeah.
partly learning the lingo too, and knowing what words to use so that
And
people go,
again, you're getting creative enough to think of a solution to this problem that exists. It's out there. People struggle with this all the time, and you're saying, "Hey, I want to help you with this." And they're bringing them into the fold and bringing them into your studio. And I will say, we had an all abilities hip hop class at one of the studios that I worked at, and um, it was just amazing to see how happy these families were when their kids came every single week, and adults, the kids and adults came, because it was such an outlet for them. It was an outlet for, it was so such a breath of fresh air for the parents to see their kids having fun and being challenged in a positive, constructive way. And it was so great for the studio to have that option. It just was a win all the way around. And so I think, if more people kind of open their minds to that, it would be really successful for the studio itself.
I also think too, there's something that's very underrated is that the parents, when they trust the teacher, that for an hour they can breathe.
Right.
For an hour, they can not have to
That a
worry
lot.
about if their kid is going to cause a distraction or do something that, whatever it is. They trust this teacher. And then the parents are out in the lobby just like having fun, right? They're on break time, and it's very valuable. That kid is with their peers, parents are outside hanging with their other friends, and it's, we often don't think about the impacts outside of our dance class.
Right.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point.
A great value added benefit that probably a lot of parents don't even think about. And something you said about the lingo, knowing the lingo and staying abreast of that leads me to this question. How often do we need to do continuing education on this type of training? Because I mean, I know that methodologies probably evolved. There's new technique. There may even be new developments in cognitive disorders and the ways they manifest. So how often is it just you get a certification and you're done? Or
well, even the terminology things that we call, disabled or special needs is not really the acceptable way to say that anymore. And so that's evolved. So there's so much.
Yeah, and everybody has their own opinion too, like there's everything is individual, right? So I take my lead from the person that I'm working with as to how do they want me to refer to their challenge. Going back to the education, so I'm going to look at it in terms of what RhythmWorks does. Initially, it was kind of the once and done training, right? So you do your certification. If you needed to do a refresher, you could. But the reality of it is that there's so much we can't cover in the course. I mean, the course is already, 18 hours long. And we give you enough to be productive and do what you need to do. But there's, many, many different diagnoses and other things that we just don't have time to cover. So what we started doing now is our certified teachers have to undergo 4 hours of continuing education every year with us. So we provide the training for them, and it's on new, one might be on spina bifida, on understanding goals, therapeutic goals, and how to bring that into the dance class. So we kind of do a deeper dive into a bunch of different things. Just to keep people updated. Like you said, things, new research emerges, new techniques emerge, and it's doctors don't go to school once and then they're done, right? Doctors and even educators, think about teachers and educators, they have to do, 30 something hours of continuing education every 2 years or whatever it is to renew their license. We don't just ever learn it once and then we're done, right? So things like this, I would recommend doing something every year. And it doesn't even have to be dance related. Like I do a lot of therapy continuing education classes. And then I take bits and pieces of that and apply it into our program and the dance classes. So just become a not a know-it-all, but a learn-it-all, to learn.
To say it. So this is a great opportunity. And again, this is professional development. We say that with the STEPS course, we say that with YPAD. These are, if studio owners and directors are looking at this and educators as like, I don't have the time, I don't have the money. This is something you make time for. It's part of your professional development. It's part of the business and the culture that you're creating at your studio. And it's not really, it shouldn't be an option. It should be a must. And so really consider these things as you are building out your program, hiring your staff. Again, we're here to better serve all of our students and make sure they're happy, healthy, safe, and dance. Tricia, this is a great time for you to tell us about RhythmWorks Integrative Dance, because you really have come up with a program that as a solution to all of this. And so I want you to talk about that a little bit and tell everybody what they're going to find when they go to RhythmWorks, how they can get a hold of you, and what this is going to do for their business.
Sure. I do want to say this though first is when, as teachers, when we look at professional development, there are the logistical, genre-based, technique-based
Yeah.
trainings that we get. There are trainings that we can do that you learn this thing and then you can do that type of class, right? That brings in additional revenue. But then there's this subset of professional education, which I would put RhythmWorks into that, and I would put maybe YPAD into that category as well. That I would call them like soft skills for teachers. So it's not necessarily, you can do a RhythmWorks program and bring in additional revenue, but really the RhythmWorks information that you get applies to all of your dance classes. So we focus on working with kids who have special needs, but really everything works for everybody. And it may not be one of those like immediate revenue, I learned this thing, now I'm making extra money in my studio. But it's one of those soft skills that can help you retain students, that make you a better teacher, that put you out in front of different audiences.
It's so important. It's your culture. I mean, it's who you are as a studio. Who do you want to be, right? Like that. I think that's equally as important as revenue.
Absolutely. So with the RhythmWorks program, it is it's about 18 hours of training. We're doing everything online right now. Yeah, so it's we have two different ways you can do it. You can do a 30-day self-paced class, or you can do a 30-day blended class, which is each week you do 4 to 5 hours of self-paced, and then at the end of that learning week, we do a live, kind of a live Zoom meeting with everybody, with all three of our trainers. That way they get to ask questions and get a little bit more personal that way. But yeah,
And these programs are going to give what? When somebody signs up and they're going to get this certification at the end, and they're going to, learn what are they learning?
right.
What are you equipping them
So
with?
we cover things like sensory integration and how that affects ability to learn, and how does that affect our behavior. We go through behavior modification, how to see it, how to understand it, how to change certain behaviors. We go through cognitive processing and teaching concepts, so like a whole conceptual teaching section of the class. So if somebody is struggling with a concept, how do we break that down further to really instill foundational level skills and then scaffold that back up to where we want them to be. We cover the whole physical side of it. So if we have someone who might have a physical disability, how do we work safely with them? How do we modify our movements, for someone in a wheelchair? We go through understanding age appropriate pacing for our choreography. So appropriate cognitive pacing for certain cognitive levels. Music mapping, we go through games. So
If you have a studio owner or director that wants to add an all abilities class schedule to their roster, do you help them
yes,
structure and formulate what that program looks like? And second part of that is, can they, everybody's situation is different, but do they have a line to you and your trainers to, talk about problems that they're having and
absolutely, yeah.
customize something?
Yeah, so we give a framework of class. So here, these are little different sections of class, and these are the activities and things you can do within those classes. So it's not a set syllabus, but it's a very flexible framework based on who you have in your class.
Yeah.
So we do have most of our dance teachers take the RhythmWorks program into their studio and have a RhythmWorks program that's based on what we teach. But you can also take bits and pieces of that and put it in all of your classes, right? So, and then we do.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. I want you to.
Once you are certified, you become part of the RhythmWorks Society, and that is our Facebook group. And it's teachers and therapists and school teachers and just all kinds of people, other certified RhythmWorks certified teachers from around the world that are there to support. So, you'll get someone that are like, help, this is going on, and they'll give us as much information, and then they just get tons of responses and try this, we did this worked, or on the flip side, you get, look what we did today, right? And they post a video of something that happened. He learned how to jump, like those little celebratory posts as well. So it's really, the one thing I want people to know is that they're not alone in this. It can sometimes be a pretty scary thing to get started on a journey that's so new and maybe a little fragile, but we're there to support them. They always have contact with us, whether through email or through our Facebook group.
And last question before we get to the contact info is, do you certify staff, an entire staff full of people at a studio? Like, do you work with the studios and their entire faculty to do that training?
We could, yes. So we don't certify the studio, we certify the person. The certification follows the person wherever they go. But to have a studio that has all of their teachers certified, teachers and assistant teachers as well, everybody's on the same page. If somebody needs to sub in at some point, everybody knows what to do. So yeah, I think,
that's possible. Okay. So tell all the things.
That link in now for you. The link to the certification is going into Facebook now.
So how can they book with you? How can they get a hold of you, find you? Tell us all the things.
I will give you my my website is rhythmworksid.com, and I'm gonna clap that out for you because no one knows how to spell rhythm. So it is RHYTHM. Got that? RHYTHM works WORKSID.com.
Awesome.
That's our website. You can follow me on Facebook. So look for Tricia Gomez. I have a little purple background on my square, and I'm jumping up sideways. And yeah, so those are probably the easiest ways to get in touch with me and to get information. The website is stocked with lots of information. So I would say definitely go there first.
Awesome. Thank you. And again, Melissa just popped in the chat, not only Tricia's website for RhythmWorks Integrative Dance, but also the course certification description. So you can investigate a little bit more on your own about what that entails and what that means for you. So you can check out both of those links in the chats on Facebook and here on Zoom. We like to give homework on Beyond the Steps. We like to see progress, people making progress and steps forward. That's why we're here. What is one thing you want to challenge our viewers and whoever is watching this after the fact to work on in the next 5 to 7 days to make progress? One small step. What's one thing they can do today that will help make progress in this on this topic?
Well, besides reaching out to me to get certified,
there you go. Yeah.
I would say find an organization in your community that you can partner with. Find an organization that supports students who have special needs and work on some kind of partnership with them so that you become the studio that they refer people to.
Right. And hopefully get some education from them in the process. We like to give resources. So Tricia has generously provided some great links for us to share with you today. And Melissa's going to pop those into the chat. We, of course, encourage you to continue your education by taking our free Steps 2020 initiative course. This is going to be a 4-part virtual course series that's going to tackle racism, gender equity, sex abuse and prevention, dance, medicine, and science, and even integrative dance. You can click the link in our bio for that, or you can find that on our website, apolloperformance.com, and you can take that once again, absolutely free and at your own pace. So important. And it's just a great way for you to kind of start yourself having knowledge on these basic topics, and hopefully encourage you to pursue it further on your own. And again, we always recommend our friends at YPAD. Check them out at ypadnow.com. Melissa's going to pop a link in the chats again for how you get certified, a link to their website, and a 25% off discount code. If you want to get certified, you'll get 25% off from our friends at YPAD. So again, check them out, ypadnow.com. And Melissa, you're going to close us out, I think.
Yes. Thank you so much, Tricia. This has just been absolutely amazing. I learned a lot. I know that I did. I don't have a lot of
Yeah.
experience
So
with working with children in this area, but I know I have
no,
worked
you're
with children.
lagging a little bit.
I'm lagging. Am I back?
While Melissa gets her internet under control, I want to you because I forgot to mention the guidance dance experience. This is one that Tricia recommended as well. It's the first YPAD certified competition, but it is a competition that actually supports dancers with special needs. And the owners and most adjudicators are
Oh,
Uh-oh.
did we lose Bree?
Yep, I think we might be losing her.
I think Bree's gone. Am I back though?
You're back. I can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay.
But what she was saying was most with guidance.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, most of both owners and most of their adjudicators are certified with RhythmWorks, so
thank you.
they are completely capable of supporting students of all abilities at their.
I'm gonna drop that in the chat as well to make sure that people can access that. I'm gonna go jump in and take over for Bree here.
She's here.
Technology issues
I'm back.
always.
I'm
Hey,
back. I don't know what happened. I have no idea. Sorry about that.
so we just talked a little bit about guidance, and I said I'm
Yeah.
going to pop that into the chat as well here on Facebook and on Zoom. But thanking you so much, Tricia, for being here. Like I said, I believe myself not to have a lot of experience in working with students who do have cognitive disorders and other challenges, but I know that I have, which means that this type of training is so very important. So thank you everyone in Facebook land and Zoom land who joined us. Thank you to Bree, as always, for joining me every single week for these wonderful conversations. The recording of this full episode will be available on Facebook at Apollo Performance and on Instagram through the link in the bio at TPDC_on_IG. Honored to be here with you, Tricia. Honored to be here with you, Bree, and honored to be here with everyone who watches this show on a weekly basis. Next week, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are going to have Aisha Upchurch back with us again to talk about how we can teach hip hop from a historical perspective to make sure the cultural significance is not lost. That is a huge topic. And Aisha touched on it when she was on the show back in December. So we brought her back because we knew we needed to circle back and get that in. So please join us next Friday at 2 with Aisha. And until then, we hope you continue your journey beyond the steps. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Tricia, so much.
Thank you.
Fun. Bye, guys. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.